Today we're looking at a super cool treehouse style home in Palm Beach, Sydney, Australia. It's a really unique property for a number of reasons, but especially because of one awesome feature you almost never see in a single family home, which I'm going to show you in just a minute. But it also has a few issues as well, and I'm not going to let it off the hook. So let's take a look inside so I can show you what they did right with this property and what they did wrong. So the first thing you'll notice here is that this home is built on a very steep, rocky slope. So instead of carving it into the hillside, the architects decided to perch it on top of the slope, so it sits there kind of hovering above the ground. And they managed to work around all the existing trees, so instead of cutting them down, they worked them into the design of the home, which gives it this very distinct treehouse sort of feel. So it's not technically a treehouse since it's not suspended in a tree, but it feels like a treehouse because it's tucked away behind this massive boulder and behind the trees, which gives it a ton of privacy. But then as you get closer, you're met with this bright yellow staircase that leads to the front door, and I can't say I'm much of a fan of it. This bright yellow sticks out way too much from the beautiful surrounding natural landscape, and it kind of cheapens the look of the place. Plus, going up a spiral staircase can be pretty difficult, especially if it's wet or you're carrying a heavy suitcase, or you're trying to carry something larger like a couch up there. That just seems like an absolute nightmare. So I think they could have made a better choice here. But another thing they've got to be aware of is that houses sitting on stilts like this, and especially those in coastal and heavily forested areas, are exposed to wind uplift, where the wind is blowing underneath the house and pushing the house upward as if it's trying to lift it off the ground. So that adds a ton of pressure to the floor, but also to the roof from below. So if the home isn't reinforced properly, it can stress the piers and the joints. And so these homes need to be anchored really deeply and really strongly. Of course, there are plenty of other homes built like this, especially in the Australian bushland, but you want to make sure that your builder has a lot of experience doing this kind of thing before you contract them to build you a house like this. Now, once you get up that yellow staircase and go through the front door, you're actually on a wraparound deck that feels a bit like a bridge between the ground and the house. Now, the deck itself is made of this sage green fiber reinforced plastic, or FRP, which is a super durable material that's used in a lot of coastal boardwalks and industrial use cases all across Australia. And that's because it's extremely durable, requires zero maintenance, and it's also non-slip, so it's totally fine to walk on when it's wet. And down at the other end of the deck, they've got this set of rattan chairs around a low rattan table. Plus, rattan furniture will degrade pretty quickly outdoors in the humid, salty air that they get near Australian beaches, and the rattan can also develop a mold problem. So I probably would have went with something more durable and comfortable out here if this were my place. But let's get to some more interesting parts of the house now, starting with the living room. And specifically, I want you to pay attention to the walls, which are lined with this beautiful timber that perfectly matches the floors below and the beams above. And you'll continue to see this as we move throughout this entire home, and it just makes the whole place feel totally cohesive. And they've also added a few cozy elements in here to soften the space as well, like this fluffy sheepskin throw and the fiddly fig in the corner next to the floor lamp. And this orange and brown geometric print on the wall with the blue shell chair are both very mid-century. But the really cool thing about this space is how it's so open to the outdoors, because the glass doors slide fully open and you're immediately on the deck, so the boundary between inside and outside just completely dissolves. And because the entire room gets filled with light filtering through the surrounding trees, I'm sure it really feels like you're living inside of the trees. Now, of course, when you use floor-to-ceiling glass, there's going to be a ton of sunlight coming in, which is fantastic, but it can also get really hot, especially in the summer months. So I don't know exactly how much of a shade cover the trees provide here, but it's definitely something you'd want to think about. And I really hope they have more than just these ceiling fans and the vents above the glass doors to keep the place cool, because otherwise this place is going to be an oven. But now let's talk about the kitchen and dining room, which, as you can see here, is right next to the living room and the outdoor deck. And there's a couple things to note here. First, the dining table they're using is really simple with these very minimal stools, and honestly, they don't look comfortable at all, and these would not be good for eating a long meal. This dining table is way better suited for breakfast or lunch that you're just eating quickly, but it's not the right place for hosting a dinner party with friends. But that's not the only problem in here, because the kitchen also has very little prep space. I'm sure they're using the dining table for prep sometimes, since it's pretty much the same height as the kitchen counters, but they've got a lamp on the far left of the counter, the sink next to the lamp, a plant sitting on the right side, and so there's really only a couple of feet of counter space in between. I'm assuming on the right side here in this cabinet is where they have the fridge, but honestly, it's a very sparse kitchen, and I don't think they can really do much cooking here at all. There's not even much space for dishware or storing food. all of it will have to go in these cabinets underneath the counters or on the right side, but if the fridge is on the right, which it has to be, then there's basically no more space. So I'm kind of confused as to where they're actually storing their stuff, because there's no other storage in this room. So maybe they just don't cook much? I'm really not entirely sure. Now, another very odd choice that they made in here, which you can really only see from this angle, is using stainless steel countertops, because stainless steel countertops come with a number of problems. Number one, they get scratched really easily, and they develop an unusual sort of patina over time. And so after a year or two, they're going to be significantly more beaten up than a stone or marble countertop would be. But secondly, they're just not warm. It feels like you're cooking in an industrial kitchen or a fast food joint, and I'm honestly really surprised that they would put these in here given how many other warm textures they've got in this space, because they're obviously very well attuned to the importance of natural textures, and so to use stainless steel in this kitchen is just kind of baffling to me. But one thing they've definitely nailed here is the seamless transition between indoor and outdoor space, and they've got a love seat and a couple of butterfly chairs here that really create a nice hangout spot right next to the kitchen. And just as an aside, butterfly chairs like these were actually inspired by an old foldable canvas chair that became popular with the British military and early American campers. And then in the 1930s, a group of designers in Argentina modernized it into the butterfly chair we know today, so they fit perfectly with the indoor-outdoor vibe of this home. So I get the feeling that when they have friends over, it's much more of an informal environment where maybe a couple of people are perched at the dining table, but most of the activity is going to be outside on these chairs, enjoying the weather and the view of the water. And so this place is much more about that and much less about having a formal sit-down dinner, which would make sense given how little opportunity they have to cook here. But there are still a couple more problems I need to point out here. Number one, they're using the same FRP on the floor out here, which gets hotter than natural wood under the direct sun, so you may not be able to walk on it barefoot during the summer. And second, the corrugated iron roofing is going to be super loud when it rains, which will be really annoying during the wet season. But we should really talk about the view here, because this home is in such a unique position to look straight out through the tree canopy to the water beyond. And it looks out the front of the home, and you saw when we entered that you need to climb up a really steep hill to get here, which is why the home is perched up so high. So they're looking straight down toward the water and get a really nice view, even though it's partially covered by trees. And so I'm certain that between the living room, the kitchen, and this outdoor hangout spot, this little hub is where they spend the vast majority of their time. So, the bedrooms. They've got one primary bedroom and one kids' room with 2 bunk beds, and both of them have the same continuous timber paneling that we've seen throughout the rest of the home. But honestly, both rooms are super basic. Now, they do get some additional natural light in the bedrooms thanks to these clear story windows at the top, which is another element borrowed from mid-century design. And they've got the same floor-to-ceiling glass doors that we saw in the living room and kitchen. But overall, there's really nothing special about the bedrooms. And this makes me think that they're only using this as a holiday home because there doesn't seem to be anywhere to store clothes or really any possessions at all. It's more the kind of place where you drop your suitcase and head down to the water or hang out in the other parts of the home because these bedrooms don't feel like the kind of place you could call home for more than a couple of days. But now we'll take a quick look at the bathroom, which really feels like the kind of bathroom you'd see at a campgrounds, but with better design. They use these large format gray tiles on the floor and walls, and there are 2 distinct shower zones, seemingly with no doors, and more clear story windows above to bring some natural light into the room. And I'm assuming there's a toilet inside each of the shower areas, but I can't say for sure. Then they've got 2 sinks side by side here, and the green wall across from the sink is made of the same FRP that's used on the deck outside. But I'd say that it kind of confirms my suspicion that this is much more a weekend beach house than it is a place for long-term living, because this is a well thought out bathroom if you want to quickly come up from the beach, shower off, and start having some food right away, but it's not at all the kind of bathroom you'd want in your long-term home. I mean, there's not even anywhere to place your bathroom stuff next to the sinks other than in the drawers below. And the entire bathroom here, while it does look good, it has a very utilitarian vibe to it. And that's why I said it feels a bit like a campground, because this reminds me of the campground sinks that I used to brush my teeth at late at night while my family and I were camping as a kid. So not exactly the vibe most people want to give off in their home. But now we finally get to the coolest part of the house, which is this massive hammock they've got right next to the outdoor living area. It's actually made from industrial mesh, and it's secured to the surrounding timber frame using steel cables, so it's more than strong enough to hold multiple people at the same time. But what's really cool is you can look straight down through the trees at the forest floor below, or you can look out to the water beyond. And so it's actually a perfect spot for people watching down at the beach, and it gives you this feeling of being hidden up in the trees where you can see out, but no one can see in. And of course, this isn't totally unique, and we have started to see this sort of oversized hammock all over the place in recent years, but to have this in your own home, I think is a really cool amenity that especially the kids will love. And even though this may not last forever, and it might get some small tears in it over time, the fact that you can just detach and reattach a new mesh means it's actually really durable and pretty cost effective over time. So what can we learn from this home? Well, the big lesson for me is don't be afraid to think outside the box, because they did that in a few different ways. They chose a plot of land on a steep hillside, they built a treehouse style home with no interior hallways, they used plastic instead of wood for the deck, and to top it all off, they put a massive hammock in the middle of the place. So it may not be the perfect or the most luxurious home, but for a weekend house by the beach, I think they executed it pretty well. And I guess that brings me to the second lesson of this home, which is to always design for your needs. So I'm reviewing hundreds of homes like this one, so make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. And I've put links to a few other homes that also think way outside the box in the description as well. And if you appreciate these more experimental, unusual homes, then you should definitely check out this video where I look at a designer's super colorful apartment and tell you all the things I would change. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.